Okay, well, so hello everybody. Welcome to the absence management session for our Workday 2022R1 release event. In case you guys haven't seen me before, my name's Ian Strachan. Excuse the horrible picture. I'm a lead functional consultant here at Tier 2 Every, certified in HCM Core, absence management, advanced reporting, and launch. So you may have seen these before, so apologies if this is going over old ground, but worth mentioning briefly. As far as practicalities are concerned, if you haven't already become a member of our Digital Insider, Digital HR Insider group, the link is there for you to join. It's a really helpful and useful group to join. There's no spam or anything like that, just really good content and of course invitations to other events. We will have a sort of a Q&A session at the end, but if we don't get to answer everybody's questions, then anything unanswered will be delivered out afterwards after the event via email. And of course this session is being recorded and that's available on demand afterwards as well. And if you haven't already done so, then do consider downloading the presentations. They're in PDF format, kind of handy to make notes on and so forth. So we always have to show off our safe harbor statement because of course we are making forward-looking statements. So do please just take a moment to look through this and make sure you're aware of the implications of that. So our key features today for Workday 2022 R1, the key features are the Workday Assistant time off requests, bit of a touch point with time tracking here, but the assigned work schedule calendar sub-processes and the ability to manage work schedule assignments. I'm going to touch into the people experience cards for absence management. And although this is, there's a delivery delay on time off security segments, I thought we'd go through that because it was about to be mandatory and it will be really soon. So we're going to cover through that as well. Then we'll talk about some miscellaneous enhancements for this release. There's a few little items for Workday 2021. Excuse me, there's a typo there. It's 2021. Oh no, it's correct. 2021 R2 plus. The retiring functionalities. And if we get time, we'll speak through the roadmap. So 2022 R1 main features, as I mentioned, the first item is our Workday Assistant correct time off requests. With this feature, workers, as it says here, you can basically with the assistant now we can edit and delete time offs, approved time offs. Previously we could request and check balances and holiday calendars and so forth, but Workday have now delivered out the ability to edit and delete approved time offs as well. And of course, this is all about reducing manual effort, making the use of absence more efficient and fluent for the users. And I've just included here. Unfortunately, I can't demonstrate from my mobile phone for you today. I wasn't able to get that kind of a link from my mobile phone, so I've included some screenshots here. Hopefully this will suffice, but of course you can always go and try that out in your own preview tenants if you're not using Assistant already. But yeah, as you can see, this is kind of what the Assistant looks like to start with. When we get into there, we can just type in natural language, cancel time off, and these things will come up and tell us what available time offs that user has to cancel, or you can type in to delete time off. So you can get in there and sort of edit or delete, either or. And once you do, when you pick up the time offs that you want to effect, then if it's a deletion, then what happens is you confirm what you're trying to delete, and the assistant will say that's been confirmed and pushed through, and if it's edit, then you're going to be taken to the absence calendar, because you need to go into there and pick up the actual time off and go into it and expand out and decide what parts of that you want to edit. I should just say that this doesn't auto complete these events. This still follows your business processes for correct time off. So we're not sort of going past any of the critical business decisions you've made around who should be able to correct time off and when and what approvals are required and so on. A little piece on the configuration. I won't go through this word to word, but effectively you need to tick. There's a in the edit tenant setup assistant tasks. There's a tick box in here. You just want to make sure that is not ticked, because that will disable the feature. And then in your BP security policy, you need to ensure you've got some security groups in there. And of course, this is a self-service feature. Just one note, a couple of things as well, just to sort of call these out. You're not going to see any time off events that have got effective dates before today. So when you get into the assistant, you're not going to see any prior events. It's only for today and future. And it's only going to show you approved events, because of course that's kind of part and parcel of the process for time off. As I mentioned, it's for self only, so contingent worker or self-employed self. And as I mentioned, it's, you know, it still comes into the business process framework. You're still going to go through your approval steps and so forth. And the last thing really here was I added just that, although it's not about this feature, but just to mention that it, you know, with Workday Assistant, it's out there already. But if you do want to make request time off, or time off requests, if you will, in the assistant, it's very similar to this, to the new correct option as far as security groups are concerned. It's a REST service that you need to go and put those security groups into. So I'm going to jump into the tenant briefly. Excuse me, while I jump into the tenant, we'll have a quick look at the feature. If I can find the tenant. Hopefully you can see the tenant. Jacob, can you see that?
Absolutely. So,
very good. Please. All right. So,
okay. Yeah.
Sorry. So I'm just going to get onto my onto the correct page in the presentation as well. So here we are in the tenant, and I'm logged in as if you've gone to many sessions today or will do, you'll see lots of people using Logan, our sort of super user. So I'm logged in as Logan, and in here we have our Workday Assistant icon here. If I go into here, as I mentioned, I can, and you may notice this is a slightly different look if you're using Assistant. So that's just recently changed the way this is looking, kind of more, you know, higher definition on the contrast and so forth. So it's handy for those adaptive users, as it were, the people that you know, perhaps visually impaired or using adaptive technologies to access Workday. But yeah, so if we go into here and we just type in again in natural language, correct time off, hit enter, the assistant's going to come back and say, oh, hold on a second, you've got so and so number of time offs that are from today or future that are approved that you could cancel. So it's going to ask me which events I want to effect, whether it's cancel or you know, delete or edit. Then when we choose the dates that's relevant, it's going to come back and ask me, am I looking to edit this or delete it? So let's assume we're going to want to go and delete that time off. And of course, in here, we've got, on this particular time off, we've got multiple dates. So the Workday Assistant, of course, needs to know which dates that you're interested in deleting. So let's just say it's the 3rd of March, in quite natural language. Oh, maybe it's not good enough, quite natural language. Let me try that again. Let me try that again. Just make cancel time off. Let's pick up the one we want. Delete. Oh, sorry. Don't need to edit. I just need to confirm. And there we are. So now we can go and see, as I mentioned, it's not going to go past our business process. So it does give us the ability to link straight into the event. So we can see, where we are in the process, and actually we can see that it's awaiting my manager to confirm that correction. One thing to note, of course, is that if you're not using Assistant already, you do need to sign the Innovation Services Agreement. You need to opt into use the opt-in task to make all this available to you. Let me, with that, that's the end of that demonstration. So let me just get back into the presentation. If I can. Where are you? It's here. All right, so let me just move on to the next slide. Some additional considerations here. And I mentioned a few already, but just an additional piece here really that, and this is a general thing for Workday Assistant, it's not currently supporting attachments. So, if edits are required, or if you're trying to change things with attachments, that's not going to work with Workday Assistant. You can't, I don't know if you noticed, but I didn't get an opportunity to add a comment. Comments not supported. And this is a bigger thing really, that worker-based time off plans are working, but position-based time off plans are not supported currently. And neither are time off plans, if any of you guys are using them, that have start and end times. Of course, we can have time off plans that are just, you're just registering the event for the particular date, but you can also say, I want this one to start at 4 o'clock and end at 6 o'clock or whatever, but those are not supported currently. And we have 3 different ways that we enter absences into Workday, whether it's you can enter direct, you can have your configuration built so that it's enter via time off only, through time tracking, or both. And if your option on a time off plan is it's entered through time tracking only, that's not going to be supported in the assistant feature either. So quick summary, I won't talk through this. This is, of course, available for you to reference later. As I mentioned, please do download the PDF, but here it just goes quickly through what's changing and what you're going to need to do, and the fact that if you do nothing, then nothing major is going to happen. It's all going to be exactly as it was before, and you can still change, edit and delete as usual in the UI. So our next feature, if you will, assign work schedule calendar sub-process. With this one, basically, we can now auto-complete work schedule calendars if those work schedule calendars are using patterns. Some of you may know that you can have work schedule calendars using patterns or calendar events, but this is a feature purely designed around work schedule calendars using patterns. Up to now, we were able to use assign work schedule as a sub-process on hire and change job. Now Workday have come along and increased that from 2 to 18 business processes, which is great. And again, this is all about improving efficiency, reducing time it takes, because it can be quite a process to manage your work schedule assignments for workers. And as I mentioned, there's a lot more business processes now. So again, for your reference later, I've just listed these out here, but there are some really, really important ones here. Of course, things like moving workers and we're seeing international assignments used more and more. So that's a key, but of course, change org assignments and add job and so on. So that's all there for you for reference later. Again, I will get into the tenant and sort of show you a piece about how this is working, but I thought I'd record here for reference later, just how this is configured. And it's quite important because it's not necessarily intuitive, but in the assigned work schedule business process itself, there's a tick box to allow autocomplete. And then we need to go into whatever other business process you want to then include that step in, and of course add the step. But the key points I wanted to highlight here is, and here's my step at the bottom here for the assigned work schedule, which I'm actually adding into change job. But the point is that I've added it down here after the completion step, and that must be the case. It has to come after completion. Otherwise, you're going to get a really kind of strange set of behaviour, and we'll talk about that a little bit too. And then the last piece on the configuration, or kind of a consideration, but a configuration piece really, is that when we use this autocomplete feature, we need to really review the calendar rules used on our work schedule calendars, because the autocomplete feature is going to use that to determine which work schedule calendars to give to somebody. So if you've got, for instance, in this example here, just to make it sort of super clear, on this work schedule calendar, the only rule is saying, are the users in the UK? So if I change someone's location, and I will show you that in a moment, to the UK, they're going to pick up this work schedule calendar and it's going to auto-complete. But if you've got, as is often the case, quite complex rules in your assignments, then you need to review those and make sure that you're not sort of giving Workday too much to think about. If you're trying to make a worker eligible for more than one work schedule calendar, the autocomplete feature is just not going to work very well. So yeah, let's get into the tenant. Enough slides. Let's get into the tenant and actually see this working. So first off, again, of course, I'm in Logan. I'm our super user, so I can sort of see everything. But there's, again, this is all going to, you know, as always, our business process framework is going to apply here. So you need to sort of consider who's doing this for you, who's configuring this. But let me show you one of the work schedule calendars that I set up for our demo. Excuse me. And this is our demo calendar. It was the one that was in the screenshots, but it's nice to see it in the tenant as well. So again, you can see here that, you know, here's my calendar. It's just a straightforward one. It's using patterns, not events. And the rule in here is quite simply just if the user's in the UK. And I've gone through in the tenant previously and just made sure there are no other rules that are trying to assign calendars that are saying if the user's in the UK and this and that, or just if they're in the UK, even worse. So I've just made sure that that's all going to, you know, be sensible for the system to understand. So let's have a look at one of our chaps in Finland, middle there. And again, if we go and take a look at his calendars, so as of today, we can see that he's in Finland, he's picking up those, but also we can see that his work schedule calendar is this standard 37.5 hours calendar. If I go in and initiate a change job for Villa, which is where I'll put my assigned work schedule calendar sub-process, the step, and I've built a skinny BP for this, so this won't take too long. But if we go and do a change job for him, oops, and change location, let's get rid of the pop-up. If we go and put in a date of, say, towards the end of the month, let's say that we're changing location, and I'm going to remove Helsinki and perhaps put in London. Again, we can just next through this to submit it. And we can see there are some minimal steps that are required with change job, but I'll get through these very quickly. So first off, receiving manager needs to approve that. So I'll jump into Boris's inbox here. and approve. And then I'm going to stop the proxy because there's a step for our HR admin. Again, mandatory step. So I've left that for Logan so we can get into her inbox and just approve that as well. And we're going to skip the assign orgs step. Not really interested in that for this demonstration. Now, if we go back and look at Bill again, we can go and see his calendars as we did before. Pick it up for the end of the month. And see that it hasn't changed. So let me just go and see if the business process is actually complete. Check his worker history. Where's the change job? It has completed. It's gone to London. Well, there's a report you can use for this as well to see changes, which is we can go and view. In case I picked up the wrong date. Again, let's pick this up. Oops, at the end of the month for Ville. Quite sure what that's doing there. We can see in here when this should change. Well, I have to apologise. I don't quite understand. This was working this morning, but this is a testing tenant, unfortunately. So some things don't always behave the way you expect them to do from in the morning as they do in the afternoon. But nonetheless, the process should have worked, and certainly the configuration and feature is as I explained in the presentation. But rather than waste your time mucking around with this now, I'll move back into the presentation. I just want to quickly check to make sure that if that change job actually came along for the right date. No, it did. So that's something must have changed in the tenant earlier today. So apologies, because it was perfectly fine yesterday evening. Let me get back into the presentation. Where are we? Where is the presentation? Here. So basically, what you should have seen was that Bill would then pick up his new work schedule calendar. I'm not quite sure what's changed there, but nonetheless, you know, if anybody's interested in this feature a little more, then please do reach out to us afterwards, so we can you know, walk through that with a demonstration that does actually work. So I mentioned about some different outcomes that can come along with this based on you know what your specific configurations are around your work schedule calendars and so forth, and I've detailed these out again here for you to reference. But just to sort of, so I won't go into them in too much detail, but it does show kind of what happens if, you know, if somebody's eligible, they're going to pick up the correct assignment automatically. You know, what's going to happen if somebody's eligible for more than one work schedule calendar, and I mentioned about the fact that these steps in the business processes you can assign can be action or service steps. So I've added them as action steps so that if things go wrong, somebody's going to get an inbox item, but you can put them in service steps. And if you do, then, you know, if things do go wrong, nobody's going to get an inbox item to deal with. So it can be even more efficient to do that, but personally, I think it's kind of inadvisable. So I tend to use the action step for that. But anyway, they're all there for you to reference again, you know, through by just downloading the PDF. So some additional considerations. Just note that once you put that autocomplete feature on, once you tick that little tick box in the system against the assign work schedule business process, then it'll always try to autocomplete. You know, if you've got that step in another business process, so just be aware it's not sort of conditional like that as such. It's always going to try and autocomplete. What Workday do recommend is, if that's not okay, then do consider using rule-based business processes, or at worst organization based business processes, and there's a hierarchy in Workday for that. So, you know, if you've got BPs that are assigned out to specific orgs, supervisory orgs, etc., that's great. But if you've got rule-based business processes, they're going to take precedence. They're going to sort of overrule those. And again, I've mentioned this already, but just be aware that the eligibility rules, you know, are going to be really paramount. They're going to be something that you really need to check through. So potentially that's what's happened today. There, somebody may have been changing some rules somewhere else on some other work schedules, which means the system didn't quite understand which one to assign to poor old Bill. So again, our summary here, just to show you what's changing, what do you need to do, and what happens if you do nothing. And in effect, if you do nothing, then the process will continue to work as it did before. You'll still get to use it on, of course, on change job and on hire, but just note that you will need to pay attention in that business process to where your completion step is compared to the assigned work schedule step. So you need to sort of review that, go and check those BPs, make sure you're not getting any errors in there now, and then just move your assigned work schedule step after the completion step. So the next piece is also actually about work schedule assignments or work schedule calendar assignments, but rather than BPs, this is about work schedules that have been manually assigned to people. So let me just get into the next slide here. So yeah, work schedule assignments, as you may know, if you're dealing with work schedules, when you can, they're assigned by rules, but you can also manually assign them to people. And if you've got a lot of work schedule calendars in your tenant, then over time these can become quite a lot and difficult to pick through when you're wanting to assign them to new people and so on. And so one of the things that a lot of customers would like to do and have been asking for the ability to do is, of course, to get rid of some of those older unused work schedule calendars. And that's great. We can do that in Workday, but we need to make sure that there are no users assigned. And that was quite a manual process to do that. So now Workday have come along with a feature whereby we can en masse, we have effectively a find workers type report here, where we can end work schedule assignments for people, and so that then we can go and deactivate those work schedule calendars, or if we just need to change those assignments for a group of people, even if we don't want to get rid of the calendar itself. So in here we can see a quick look at what that report looks like. Again, so it's very much a find workers type report with some facet filters, and then once we pick up all our users we want to run, it's going to move into the fact it's going to kind of bring up the work schedule assignments that are in use, and we can filter those out. If we've got a lot there, we might only want to be interested in one or two of those at that particular moment, or for assignments that have been made before or after a particular date and so forth. And then we move on, having selected that, we move on to be able to correct those and change the start and end dates, and even give people different calendars and And of course, we can add a comment in there and select which people. So I'm just going to dive back into the tenant again so we can have a look at this feature. Let's hope this one isn't also broken. So again, here we are in our tenant. Excuse me 1 second while I just quickly change to the correct slide. So yeah, here we are in the tenant. If I run the Manage Work Schedule Assignments report, if I could type, that would be good. Maybe make this a little bit smaller so you could perhaps see a bit more. I hope that's not too small for everybody. But yeah, so we can see we don't, obviously there's a testing tenant, so we don't have so many employees in here. But if you did, then you might want to sort of filter those down with these facet filters, and like all these sort of faceted reports, we can expand these out, pick up different ones. And the nice thing with this report as well, excuse me, is that it's a standard report, so we can go and copy that if we want to change how we're filtering that and so on. But for here, let's assume we just want to check this on all of these workers. So I'm going to pick them all up and click the correct assignments button. And here we can see that in our tenant, at least, there are actually only 5 people who have had work schedule assignments, work schedule calendars assigned manually rather than by rules. And we can see who they are, what their dates are, which calendars they've got. Let's assume perhaps I'm only interested in looking at this standard 35-hour calendar. So as I mentioned, you can kind of filter those down. So you're only affecting the calendars that are relevant to you. And these filters are another way of just reducing this list. This is not changing anything here. It's just reducing the list of the population we're going to act upon. So we've got 2 people here now. If I say OK, get to here, sorry, notice that I changed. So now I can change the start date, the end date. I can even pick up other calendars that I want them to go on to. And of course, I can have my comment and I have to confirm, click OK. So I could, for instance, say, actually, I want all of these to end. You'll notice that there are no end dates here, but I want all of these to end on the end of this month. And adding end dates, 28 Feb. Confirm what I'm trying to do. I'm taking a quick note of who we're affecting here. Okay. Done. Then if I noticed that we were looking at Adam Carlton, so if we go and pick up Adam Carlton, we can go and look at his calendars. Perhaps for next month, unless this has also been affected. Yeah, so now what's gone on, I don't know if you remember, it was the 25-hour or 35-hour calendar that we were looking at, 25, 35. But anyway, that was a manually assigned calendar. That's gone now, and now Adam is picking up the calendar that is assigned by rules automatically. So we've removed that sort of manually assigned calendar. So let me just get back into the presentation here. And we go on to the next page. So as far as config is concerned, it's again, this one's pretty straightforward. There's a domain security policy, mass update schedule assignments. So you can run the report. And then we've got a BP security policy to add our security groups in so that they can initiate that mass action. Again, what's changing, we can now mass edit work schedule calendar assignments. I mentioned the configuration requirements. Of course, you need to actually run the report itself. But again, if you don't want to do that, no big problems there. It's just going to be that you can't edit those en masse. So the next thing is people experience, and just a note here really that this was going to be mandatory for this release, but there is now an opt-out feature. It's only available until Workday 2022R1 goes live. So if you do want to opt out of the people experience homepage, Workday Today, then there's a link there. You need to go and you can read the article, but in Workday itself, you can go and use the task Workday Today opt-out. As far as the feature is concerned, for absence, we have basically 2 new PECS cards, one for employee self-service and one for manager self-service, enabling users to see upcoming approved time-offs and leaves for the next 30 days for their direct reports or for their teammates. Obviously, this is all about making it easier to plan, make informed decisions about work schedules and priorities. Managers, the MSS card shows upcoming absences for subordinates, and you can quickly view your team absence calendar directly from there if that's in use. And for employee self-service, you can see upcoming absences for your team. And again, if you click that link, it'll take you into your own absence calendar. So you can go and, if you've enabled the ability to see colleagues' events in there, then you can see them directly in the sort of normal calendar view. The other thing to note here is that the absence and team absence worklets are now moved into the new quick tasks area in the Workday Today homepage. So if you go into quick tasks, click into view all apps, you'll see those worklets are now there for you. As far as configuration is concerned, it's pretty straightforward, and I'll show you this in a moment, but you just need to go into the home cards workspace and add those cards and publish them. And again, if you want more information about the Workday Today, the PECS home page, then obviously we have had, I think, we'll have a PECS session, but that you can also reference the 2021 R2 session as well. And if you want to get a hold of that presentation, then do please reach out to us. So yeah, let's get into the tenant and see how this looks. So some of you may already be seeing this if you've taken this up, but again, this is our Workday Today homepage. And again, I'm in as Logan, of course. If I go into my view all apps, you can see that my team absence and absence is here. And just quickly, in case you're not using team absence, because I know there are some customers that are not doing so, I just wanted to call out that although it's not a PECS feature, but the link is there. So I thought I'd take the opportunity to mention that this team absence worklet is a really useful worklet if you're not using it already, and gives managers the ability to see for their team who's got time off coming up, who's on leave, who's coming back from leave, and gathers all the useful tasks and reports that we commonly use as administrators and managers relating to admin tasks for absence. Let me just go back. In fact, let me go to I'm there already. So key point here is that in the Workday Today, we can see that Logan has some time off coming up. That's a feature from previous. That's upcoming time offs of your own. But what we don't see is anything for her teammates or her direct subordinates, because Logan is indeed a manager. So again, if we go to that work cards home space, we can see the cards are all in. We can choose to add a card. We can filter that, but I happen to know they're down here at the bottom here. So here's our 2 new cards, ESS and MSS. If we add those to the space, you'll notice they're unpublished. So let's publish those. And if we go back to the home page now for Logan, scroll down and open this up a little bit, you'll notice the 2 cards are now here. So the first thing is that we can see that Jacqueline has got something coming up. If we click that, the link, we'll see it's taking us into the team absence calendar, and that's because Jacqueline is a subordinate of Logan. So we can just pick that up, and it takes us into the standard team absence calendar view. So we can go and see what's going on for Jacqueline, and there's that upcoming time off that we could see. And if we go back to the home page again, excuse me, and expand that out, we can see also there's something coming up for Robert, but Robert is actually in the same supervisory organization as Logan. So if we click that link now, it's going to take Logan into her absence calendar, and she can see that event is coming up there for Robert. So let me just go back to the home page again. Okay, so I think we could move on to the next feature. Well, just a quick summary again. So what's changing? There's a little asterisk there against home page is now mandatory, because of course it isn't anymore. There's an opt-out feature, but you've only got until this release goes live, then it will be. So unless you opt out. So we've got these two new cards, and the worklets have moved. And if you don't do anything, of course, you won't anymore see that new homepage if you opt out, but otherwise you're going to. But you won't see the new cards. You've got to bring those into the homepage, but your worklets will indeed move. So next feature, again, this is something from prior, but I thought I'd cover it off quickly now or in some detail now, because again, this was going to be mandatory as of this release. There is a feature delay on this to TBC, but it's the information coming out of Workday is that it's imminent. It'll be soon. At worst, I would expect it to be the next release, but it may well be before. So let's see. But I thought it would be very valuable to cover this off, because it is quite a change to time off and how it works. So as far as the features concerned, again, if you haven't used this so far, basically segmented security for time off is much like segmented security for leave of absence if you're using it. We can specify which time off types and which security groups are able to use them. And again, it just brings it all into a more consistent and unified approach, which is exactly what Workday are trying to do here. If you're only permitted, to use certain time offs, then users can trust that. They don't have to think, am I going to make a request and then find out afterwards I'm not allowed to use that particular time off. It's going to, during a sort of a time off request, it's just not going to present the time off to them exactly as it does with leave. And also, of course, it does mean that if you've got an existing business processes, help text, validations, and so forth around when people request time offs that you don't really want them to be allowed to do, then you can go, and you should go and review those and potentially remove those. So again, it's a kind of a more fluent and streamlined experience for the users. And I just put a couple of screenshots here just to show that, and we will get into this, but the difference. So in this particular configuration, we've got flex time. I don't know if you can read that, it's a bit small, but flex time is enabled for admins but not for employees, and this administrator is going in and requesting absence for exactly the same employee. Ville again, the admins can see the flex time, but actually Ville can't, but we'll see that in the tenant. Configuration wise, again, if you've used leave type security segments, this will be relatively familiar to you. There's a domain set up, time off domain that you need that has the 2 new reports and 2 new tasks that you use to manage this. So you've got to report all time off security segments, which is what you're seeing over here. A task to be able to create and edit time off segments. So we can create and edit. And then another, believe it or not, this one's a report as well to view time off security segments. And I just mentioned, sort of put a screenshot here of the actual policy, again, sort of helpful for your future reference if you pick up this presentation and want to refer back. And basically, we're just going to go and add those segments to the segment related, exactly again like we would do with leave. A quick note, Workday will provide a conversion. They'll run a conversion which basically checks only the current effective dated snapshots, so not future dated snapshots, and it's going to look at, you know, basically look at the time off plan and check if you're using the -worker self-service checkbox. If you're not, then basically the all user security group is just added to the time off segmented setup domain, and this is where we add our security groups that are allowed to use to use time off. And I'll just quickly go back, but that's where we add these security groups that we can see over here. So they're added into this, not only then this segmented security, but we need to add them to that domain, and that's listed here. So yeah, but if you are using the -worker self-service checkbox on any time offs, then you're going to get two security groups created. So we're going to have one for the all time offs, if you will, which, you know, for your admins and so forth, and then one for worker self-service. And you can see the details of that in the presentation here. And just to note before we jump in, when Workday does that conversion, they'll create the segment of time off type segment, time offs without hide from worker self-service checked, and what will happen there, they'll take all the time offs that weren't hidden, and that'll be secured to the, and they'll give that access to employer self and contingent worker self. And then there's another one that'll be created, which is the segment-based security group for all time off segments, and that's where you'll get all your admins and so forth put in. So that's the conversion that'll happen if you haven't sort of already taken this into use. Oops, sorry, let me come back to the demo slide. So yeah, let's have a quick look at the tenant, because it's much easier to look at here. So if I proxy into here as Maria, who is one of our absence partners, if I could type, how are we doing for time? Ooh, 11 minutes, better hurry up. If I look in as Maria, and I go find our friend Bill there, I can go into absence for him, and as you can see, I can choose flex time. If we instead proxy in as Bill there, going into absence, I can go to the workload, but I can also come into here, our new navigation, request absence, same date. You'll notice that those other absences are not there, and I can't actually request flex time. So let me just stop the proxy. So if I say run the report view, or even quicker, time off seg, we can go see all of those that are in the tenant, our all time offs and worker self-service. These are the two that will be created by the conversion. Again, if I click into one, for instance, this segment for employee self-service, we can see how this is built up quite clearly. We include our security groups and the segment that's relevant, and here's the domain that you need to include this security group in. Whichever ones you put in your segmented security for time off, you need to include in this domain. If I go into the actual segment, I can see which time offs are going to be included for those users, and we can just edit that, add time offs, or take them away accordingly. And one last thing about this is that if you have time offs which are not in a segment which users are now able to use, but they are eligible to the time off plan itself, when they go to their own calendar, then their balances is going to give them a particular piece of information there. So just to show you what this looks like, if I go to look at one of our chaps in the States, Pedro, or proxy in as Pedro. We'll go and look at his absence calendar. And one of the things that I've pre-configured in here is that although the guys in the States are eligible for their vacation, weirdly, I've decided that they can't request those themselves. And this is a little bit small, so I will zoom in a little bit here. But basically, hopefully you can see this. What it shows to the user is, although they're eligible, they've got 31 days, there's no eligible time offs, which means that's what this is telling the user. It's saying that you don't have a time off you can actually use. So that's how that will come out to the users. So yeah, if you see that, you get errors, that's where you need to go. Let me get back to the presentation. Additionally, again, check your, the security, based security groups on the segments and on the domain security policy. If you are using employees of service or contingent workers, self in another type of security group for like an intersection, for instance, then you may need to go and pay attention to those and do some work on those. Of course, you can create your own segments if you want to, narrow this down in any particular way. And something that isn't immediately obvious, but if you are using authentication policies to restrict access to certain domains, then you need to kind of pay attention to that and potentially include your segment-based security groups in there. And the other thing is, if you went live with absence after May 2021, then you're going to need to go and build this up for yourself, because they're not going to build that up for you. So just be aware that you need to make sure that everyone's got access. And this last thing is quite important, actually. If you're using, as most customers do, have unconstrained security groups around, be aware that unconstrained security groups by their nature are not context aware. So when you're putting them into these segments, then you may find that users have got access to all the time offs. So you just need to sort of be aware of that. There's some additional considerations for you to review there, just about when you can and cannot cancel based on your segment setup, and also what happens to existing events and so on, and as an impact touch point there into time tracking, as far as when you can and can't use particular absences. And this is quite key as well. If you've got absence partners that are potentially supporting their own orgs, then they're going to see, they're going to use their sort of as self and their absence partner role. So again, you're going to expand out which time offs they can see, and you might want to consider making a change if that's a requirement to sort of restrict that out for those guys. Quick summary there of what we've discussed there. I won't bore you to go through it. But do note that if you don't make any configuration changes and you went live after May last year, then you're going to hit a problem. So you need to make sure that you configure that. So other features, I think we're a little bit strained for time. Jacob, are we ending in 4 minutes? Is that about right? 4 or 5 minutes?
That's the plan. That's the plan.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'll just spin through these quite quickly then. So firstly, the time offs and all time offs report is changing because of the time off security segments piece. So that may well be delayed as well now because of the delay to the time off security segments. But again, you will see those changes because the hyphen self-service checkbox is going away from time off plans, some time offs, and you'll see a change to the report because that field will go and there's a new field coming in. So this do not allow employee to request, that's going to disappear, and instead you'll see the hyphen employee self-service checkbox, and that'll come along. Mobile, this is quite a nice one. But they're constantly trying to push forward and work hard on what we deliver out to mobile users. It's about efficiency. It's about allowing your employees to work in the way that best suits them. But now we saw earlier about the ability to cancel and delete and edit time offs via assistant. We can also do that now via mobile. So again, and unfortunately I can't link my mobile to the computer to show you, but this is how it looks. So if you go into the mobile app, there's a time off app in here. If you click into it, you can find any time offs that are already in there. You can, click into that. It'll pick up what kind of time off it is, and then you can choose to delete that. And once it's deleted, you can see it's gone into a submitted state. So again, it still honors your business process steps and approvals and so forth. But again, a really nice feature. There's a new report, view override balances for organization report. If you are overriding people's balances, and I know some of our existing customers are doing that quite a lot, so this could be a really helpful feature. This Workday delivered report now will allow you to basically just pick up the organizations that's important and the start and end dates, and go and see which employees have had balances overridden, how much, and of what dates, and it also shows you those units there. So again, this is kind of a really nice feature. There's a domain you need to configure to comply with the security requirements to be able to run the report, but that's a nice kind of easy feature to pick up and use, and as I say, I know that's going to be quite helpful for a lot of our customers. Teams. So again, just a quick note that now you can also edit and delete time off requests via Teams and Slack. So if you've integrated Workday to your Teams, typically we find with most users, or Slack, then you can now just straight inside Teams there, you can go and pick up your existing time offs and delete those or edit those. Again, as long as you have the security to do so. The next thing is this is a really technical thing, but I chuck it in there because it's quite helpful. Time off day week numeric reporting field on the time off entry business object. So really helpful if you are, for instance, you might want conditions around if, for instance, weekdays number 2 to 5 have been taken by somebody. Potentially that's some, sort of the numbers for your particular tenant for Monday to Friday. So typically tenants start on a Sunday, but that's a configuration choice. But anyway, if people have taken, say, dates 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and that's your Monday to Friday, then you might want to force them to take day 7, which is the Saturday. And again, a lot of people have configured that already using quite complex calc fields, looking at pulling out the names of days of the week and pulling out the days from dates, and then doing it in multiple languages and lots of calculations, which is quite an overhead on the system. So this could be coming quite useful. So I thought I'd bring that one up there. As far as Workday 2021 features, please shout, Jacob, when I run out of time. Not so many here, but basically we can now, if you're using absence occurrences, we can now count how many of those are in a balance period or how many have started in a balance period, which is obviously really helpful for reporting out on absence occurrences. And again, reach out to us if you're not using those and you want to understand what that feature can do for you. We also have a recent continuous service date new count field, and that's about sort of ensuring your system brings forward people's accruals and calculations and balances correctly when they're rehired. And again, there's a lot of calc fields being used currently around doing that for people, but now we've got this new IBC, this new recent continuous service date based on start or end of period, we can use. So that's also a nice feature. But again, you can sort of reference that in here after the event. And one thing I was going to show, but I think I've run out of time.
Yeah. And I think we need to jump sort of to the last page, or sort of wrap up quick.
Yep, just a quick one. So you guys can review these in the PowerPoint, but we now have two different areas to put attachments in. So in leave requests. So I'll just quickly jump to the last slide as you mentioned, Jacob.